Okay. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. This is our monthly Q&A. I'm here with Colleen. They can't hear you if they're listening.
They can't see me wave. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us live, and also those who listen later. Thank you.
And Danny.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. Be here with you.
And we're here with a group of about 35 people as well. Unless they actually, make any noise or speak, you won't see them on the recording or hear them on the recording. But we're just really excited to be here in circle with all of you. And as Colleen said, those of you that are also listening later. So this monthly episode is one that we do live here with an audience. We always post it a little bit later, but it's here that we do one live with an audience. And we love this. This is actually how the podcast started, is Colleen was just doing a monthly Q&A, community Q&A, because we know that as Reiki practitioners, a lot of times when we finish a Reiki class or have something that comes up in a session or just even generally a curiosity, it's really nice to have a resource to come and ask your questions. We know that we get email questions, and we try to get to those as well, but sometimes we just get chatting here and we run out of time for that. So you're always welcome to come on here live. There's ways also to stay anonymous. So you can come onto the live episode, but stay anonymous and ask your questions anonymously. So if you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable asking my questions or being on the recordings, we do take that into account. And we have a way that you can ask your questions anonymously, even if you join us live. So people wouldn't know who it is, and we don't announce who it is, even here in our circle.
So let me add one thing to that, is that if you email questions and they're not live on the podcast, we still answer you back by email. So, we are happy for you to send questions and happy to answer them. I should say that sometimes if they're a more in-depth answer, it can take us a day or two to kind of think about it and listen around your question and what the answer is and get back to you. But we do get back to you. And if for any reason you send us an email that you don't hear back from us, just something happened that, unforeseen, or it drops to the bottom or something like that, email us back.
Yeah.
It's not intentional that we don't answer you. So anyway.
Yeah, follow up. Sometimes it goes into spam. We do check spam, but or it can go into promotions folder or something like that. So it sometimes just got missed for some reason, or filed before we answered it, and miscommunications and things like that. So definitely follow up if you don't hear back from us.
Yeah, and Danny answers, Robyn answers, I answer. So you've got lots of, we are here.
The great thing about coming on to the Q&A is that sometimes you might have a follow-up question, or it's an in-depth answer that we're able to answer by speaking, rather than, you're able to answer more nuanced, more in-depth in when you're talking about it, than sometimes in an email. So it's part of the thing that we love to do, and be able to support all of you as Reiki practitioners, Reiki teachers, or just curious about different aspects of Reiki and spirituality, because we have a lot of experience in other modalities and other parts of spiritual concepts as well. So that's what we are doing today. A few announcements before we get started. This will be posted next Monday. So Colleen will have a Reiki masterclass coming up September 15th through the 17th. That is next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, correct? Yeah. So there is still a few spots left in that. She is teaching her last Karuna Reiki of the year, October 20th through 22nd. So she'll, be teaching it next year as well. But if she only teaches like Karuna a couple times a year. So if you have been called to Karuna, definitely check that out. We have an Animal Reiki Master and an Animal Reiki 1 and 2 coming up in October as well. October 25th through the 27th is the Reiki Master, and then the Animal Reiki 1 and 2 is October 28th and 29th. And that's on a weekend. So I know some of you were looking for a weekend class. And then Colleen is teaching a 7-day Karuna Reiki class in Hawaii with William Lee Rand on the island of Maui. They've had communication, and William obviously has a house in Maui with people there that are asking people to still come to the island because their entire economy is based on tourism. And so to come and support the people of Hawaii so that they can also help support their communities, and of course people affected by the fires in Lahaina. That is November 11th through 19th. All of the other classes you can find at reikilifestyle.com, but the 7-day in Hawaii you can find on reiki.org. So there's that. And then we have social media. It's either Reiki Lifestyle. Mine is Robyn Benelli Reiki. And then the last thing that I want to announce is our Tuesday morning distance Reiki shares. Those are from 9:30 to 11 Pacific time. We do them every Tuesday morning. And the normal kind of format of them is that we do some Reiki talk about some Reiki subject or spiritual subject. But it also can be business related. It can be, some of those more practical pieces as well. So it totally runs the gamut is what we talk about. And then we have a guided journey or invocation. That is always super helpful. And then if you want to stay, you can go into breakout rooms and with usually 3 to 4 people and give and receive Reiki with each other. And then we do group Reiki. So sending Reiki to family and friends, sending Reiki to community and world events, things like that. That is also a nice practice as well, to send the power of our circle. It's free and open to all people of all lineages, of experience levels. So even if you're not attuned to Reiki, you can come and check it out. And then also we keep it really relaxed. So many people join us from work and can only stay for a part of it. They keep their videos and audio off and just listen. And you can come in late, leave early. It's always okay. It's supposed to be stress-free, so we try to keep it that way as much as possible. All right, that was a lot of announcements. So welcome, everybody. We are excited to be here as always. So I think what we'll go ahead and do is go into the invocation. And then we can go into the Q&A. Does that sound good? Colleen, did you?
Yep. I was just going to ask you, are you doing the invocation? Or
yeah, I think I'll go ahead and do the invocation today, just because we kind of started late and now it's already 9:30. So that way we'll keep it kind of short today. In all honesty,
we all know what she's saying.
Well, in all honesty, we're coming off of the Sedona retreat, and we're still kind of in that energy. So it could go really deep and really far. And as much as I love that, because we're starting a little later, I think we'll keep it a little shorter today.
Nope. Great.
All right. Does that sound okay? Yeah,
completely.
All right. Well, Colleen did an amazing one yesterday in the distance Reiki share. It was long and it was deeper, and it will be posted on.
It will have already been.
It would have already been posted. It's posted on our YouTube or on our podcast. So if you're looking for that kind of longer experience, definitely go and check that one out because it was amazing. So, all right. For those of you that are joining us today, you can just go ahead and get comfortable. If you're here in our circle, you can turn your videos off if you would like. You can close your eyes and just take some deep breaths. drawing in that oxygen all the way into below your navel, filling your whole body. And on the out breath, just begin letting go. Letting go of what's ready to be released. For those of you that are able, letting go of any busyness. If you're at work listening to this, just ask Reiki to support what's ready to be let go of on the out breath. The Reiki light is surrounding you now. If you're attuned, you can activate the Reiki symbols and place your hands comfortably on your body. Give yourself Reiki. And if you're not attuned, know that the Reiki energy is surrounding you just by you saying yes. You can place your hands on your body in a comfortable position or next to you with palms up. Either way, just receive. Breathe in that sweet golden light. Flows in on your breath and flows down to the bottoms of your feet, out through the bottoms of your feet, connecting you into the earth. It flows in through the top of your head, down through your crown chakra, and fills your whole being from your feet to your lower legs, your upper legs, through your abdomen and your belly, through your chest, and through your arms and hands, through your heart space. Beautiful light filling your shoulders and your neck and throat, and up through your face and your head. And breathe out again as that Reiki light is activating your parasympathetic nervous system and releasing from the sympathetic nervous system the fight or flight. Letting go of anything that's not serving you right here in this moment in time. And allowing your body to drop deeper into a grounded and stable position. And feeling more and more relaxed, reducing your stress, calming your mind, and dropping into that heart space for just a little while. And that light surrounds you, the light of Reiki, and the light of the divine earth traveling up through your feet, filling your whole body as well, through all of your chakras and your colors. the red and orange and yellow, green and blue and indigo and violet, the root and the sacral and the solar plexus and the heart, the throat and the third eye and the crown, through your earth star and your soul star, the connection to the earth and the divine, through the chakras in your feet and through your hands. Bright and centered and grounded and flowing and relaxed. And the Reiki light is filling the space that you're in, lifting any dense energy, lifting the denseness and filling it with effervescent love, pure love. That is the light of Reiki. And the illumined ones are standing in a circle around you in the space that you're in, the corners of the land, shining their light into you, on you, within you, all around you. The angels and illumined ones, the ascended masters, brothers and sisters in the light. And any beings that you might work with, the divine animal kingdom, your guides and allies. They're all right here with you, supporting you, loving you, helping you heal, helping you reveal your inner truth and guidance and wisdom. And the Reiki light helping you to reveal more and more of your authentic self so that you can hear you, so that you can hear the divine, so that you can hear the earth and how it all expresses to you and through you. So you walk your path, the path of your heart, the song of your heart, of your spirit, of your soul, of your instincts and intuition, of your innovations, your gut brain and your brain and your higher mind, so that you can hear the divine, the source of consciousness, God, however you think of that, the biofields of all living things on the earth, and the relationship that we have to each other, the oneness of the earth, so that you may feel the love and support of Reiki as you walk your path and the cycle that you may be in. It may be of love and joy, may be of hardship and struggle, it may be of transition, may be of inspiration and new beginnings. As Reiki reveals to you your solutions and the support of love and the divine ones, that your path illuminates in front of you, and whatever that looks like for you, your next steps. Sometimes that can feel easy, other times that can feel hard. Sometimes you're able to be in presence, and other times you may need to look forward or heal what's behind. But right now, Reiki is surrounding you and supporting you in whatever that looks like for you in this moment. We say thank you to the illumined ones that have joined us here in this circle. We're so very grateful. We say thank you to our own guides and allies that support us, not just here, but in our lives, to the Reiki energy for all that it is to us. We say thank you to each other. Our circle is always divinely ordered, and whether you're listening here today or are here with us today or listening later, say thank you to each other and are honored to be in a circle and lineage of light bringers. We say thank you to the teachers and the ancestors that have come before us. We are honored to receive your teachings, to live them and allow them to hear, allow ourselves to hear them and carry them forward into the descendants and into the ascendants. We're grateful for you as well, students. And now say thank you to yourself. Place your hands on your heart space. You've heard the call and you are answering. So say thank you to you for all that you are and all that you do. You are a divine being right there in that heart space. Your spirit is right here within your wholeness. As you continue on your path to remembering the pure love that you are within. As above, so below. As without, so within. Thank you. And so it is. And so when you're ready, you can come fully back into the present and into your body, stable and grounded, and open your eyes. All right. Well, normally we try to have a little bit more time to come back. But, with this Q&A, we kind of have to move forward quickly. So we will go ahead and do that and get into some of our questions. So I recently joined the ICRT as an affiliate member and purchased William Rand's virtual streaming, The Reiki Touch, as a way to broaden my understanding and learn from him. I noticed in the store that the handouts for the symbols are different from the ones I learned in 95. I will be teaching 1 and 2 Yusui this fall. My question is, do I teach the students who are coming forward for level 2 the Reiki symbols the way I was taught in my latest training and most recently attuned to, or do I learn to draw them the way they appear in the handouts in the store? My last teacher has a level 2 workbook that I could use, or should I purchase Williams manuals from the ICRT store and learn to draw the symbols that way? This is a new Reiki practice that I'm building and want to give the students the best training that I can.
Your last sentence is really the important part, and not so much about exactly the best training, but that part of your heart that is saying that. And Reiki students come to the teacher to receive Reiki. And what is most important to them with their teacher is that their teacher is teaching with their authentic heart and self, and that foundational meaning that you just said in your question. So there's a lot of right answers to this question. So just to summarize the question about the symbols, there are multiple ways that the symbols are taught and drawn, depending on the lineage that you were taught with. And that occurred back in the history of Reiki with Mrs. Takata. And it is thought that she taught students with different versions of the symbols. There's not any really clear evidence as to why some of her 22 Reiki masters had different symbols also. And by different symbols, it just means there are nuances in the ways that they're drawn. I learned different symbols. Again, just some nuanced lines differently, and particularly with the distance symbol. So in the 22 Reiki masters that Mrs. Takata trained, when they gathered in the Reiki and created the Reiki Alliance in the early 1980s, they discovered that many of them had different symbols. So it's not known whether Mrs. Takata intentionally taught different symbols or if they remembered them differently because she only allowed them to practice drawing them in class. They weren't able to take home the practice sheets that they had for those symbols that they did in class, because she taught Reiki as strictly an oral tradition. So that's just a bit of the history of it. As far as how you decide to teach, this is a listening moment for you on what feels accurate to you. You could teach them with the symbols that you have, and you could also decide to switch to the symbols that you learn through the ICRT and the way they're drawn. Also deciding the structure of what you're teaching. So one of the really great things with the ICRT are the manuals, the teaching manuals. They give you specific outlines and the materials in the manuals in how to teach Reiki to others. And there's also lots of other really good ways to teach Reiki that don't have to do with those specific manuals and outlines, and could be from the lineage that you are already working with and the way that you're teaching. So it actually turns out to be a decision that you make, a practical decision. To me, is how I personally looked at it, was that I did not want to have to reinvent the wheel. And I also was so excited that there was a quality manual with quality outlines to give me a structure I could follow, adapt. I get to teach it, through my own style, my own way, my own words, but there's actually an existing structure with a manual I can give my students. And that those symbols that are drawn by the ICRT are probably the most commonly used version of the symbols. So there's a lot of ease in using materials that already exist. It's also important for you to decide if you want to provide your materials for your classes your way is completely appropriate. Also, the lineage that you were taught in may have a specific way. Lots and lots and lots of right ways to teach Reiki, lots of right ways to practice Reiki, and also lots of right ways to draw the symbols. For me, it turned out to be a practical decision. I actually decided to study with the ICRT in those styles because I liked first of all, they were very current. When I learned Reiki back in 2000, I did learn different symbols. I also learned a lot of different traditions in the lineage that I studied in. So when I studied with William 3 years later in 2003, I really liked the presentation of the materials, and I really liked the professionalism of it all. And most of all, for me at that time, the big importance was that the research that was being done on the evidence-based history of Reiki. And so that was really helpful too. And in that research, what really was discovered, there's lots of right ways to teach Reiki and lots of right ways to practice Reiki, and that there are different symbols and they do work for the person using those symbols. So, long answer to that question. So what I would encourage you to do is kind of listen around it. And from that kind of practical perspective of what is the most effective for you as a teacher, what materials give you, the structure that is a match for you, what symbols work best for you, and then make that decision from that perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Got the thank you in the chat.
You're welcome.
Okay. So then the next question is from Jess. As a Reiki master, when we lead clients into an ignition experience, are we also giving ourselves another ignition as we are going through the same experience and hearing the same words? So I would say yes, and also kind of, depending on the situation. It's always a yes. Whenever you are reading or doing the experiences and ignitions, there is definitely also a level as a master or teacher that there is, that happening for you as well. At the same time, when you are teaching a Reiki class, sometimes you have to stay a bit more present. I know for me, there's been times where, I can almost fall asleep if I could, as we know how it can happen in ignitions, sometimes, or placements or attunements. Sometimes that can happen. And so, there's the practical things about timing and paying attention to the clock. For those of you that may not be attuned to Holy Fire or haven't taken a Holy Fire class, an ignition is the attunement, is the name of the attunement in a master class, and a placement is the style of attunement in a 1 and 2. So in Holy Fire Reiki 1 and 2, you have a placement style of an attunement, and it is more in the style of like a guided meditation, where then the student goes into their own inner experience for a period of time, and that's where the ignition process takes place. So, and it's a long period of time. It's about 20 to 25 minutes or so. Then in the master or the Karuna classes, you have an ignition style of attunement. And it is similar where it is guided, then you're in a period of silence, and then you come back out of the period of silence where that attunement is taking place for the student in that period of silence. So in those, you can have a variety of experiences. Sometimes you do tend to kind of go into that Reiki gap, which can kind of feel like falling asleep, but it's not falling asleep. Other times you have these really, really profound experiences. So as a teacher, you can also find, or when you're giving an ignition or placement to somebody else, you can also find you have those similar experiences. But then as a teacher, since you are also facilitating them, you do tend to have to stay in somewhat of a level of presence that you don't if you are receiving as a student. So there is that kind of little bit of a difference with it, just having to stay in that presence. So while you do receive it at a certain level, you are still receiving it, even when you are in having to kind of stay in that conscious, cognizant state with it. Reiki always knows where to go and what to do with that. And so it may not be kind of like the full ignition experience like we're used to when we're receiving it as a student or as a client, if you're doing ignitions, repeat ignitions with clients. But there's still, in my experience, there's still some level of receiving that ignition or placement. So Colleen, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I receive, and then like Robyn said, there are times I need to stay more focused in the class. And the only other thing I would add to it is, like everyone else, I can have those experiences when I'm in the ignition or placement with others in the class and I'm facilitating. Like anyone else, I can have those that I'm in mind chatter. I can have them that I go really like into the universal aha moments. I can have them where they're, bringing in the colors. Most of the time, I try to not go into the one where you're in the gap, just because I have to be paying attention. And I don't like to use an actual like alarm or chime or anything to know when time is up, because that startles us all. So make me jump. So I think out of anything is that I've really learned, because I receive so many, go into so many experiences with teaching and practicing, that I've learned to understand how Reiki works in all of the conditions of my mind. So sometimes it's going to just take me, deep into those big moments, and other times might be mind chatter, and sometimes it's figuring out my lists. So that happens too. So that's probably all I would add with it, is just to know that that's all normal and it's okay.
Well, when you're online, sometimes it's a little easier to set that alarm because you're in silence as the teacher. However, when you're in person, I agreed. I don't want to set the alarms because it's way too startling to do that. So you do have to pay attention to the time. But sometimes that energy can drop you. Sometimes the energy is just like, there was one relatively recently where I had to kind of like draw and automatic write to stay cognizant so that I wouldn't fall asleep or go into the gap, I should say, because it was just so relaxing. And that's a beautiful thing. That's like what we want for people. But I did have to make sure that I was keeping myself present and focused, as Colleen said, also. And I just know that as you said, you're receiving it at the level that you need to receive it. So
I'll add one more thing to it. Sometimes I'm also like feeling a little bit at capacity for receiving it. Because I may have done, days and days and days of ignitions and teachings and things like that. And so I also am okay with like, just give me some light Reiki. What a pun, light Reiki. But also allowing for a very kind of maybe slower trickle of the energy. I don't know how to say it, but I think you know what I'm saying, is that just to allow Reiki to come in at the pace I'm able to receive in that moment, because it's almost like a workout where, you build your strength and you need to rest, and you build your strength and you need to rest. There's the spiritual expansion sometimes of this can be like, okay, now I've received at this level, I'm expanding my strength, my spiritual strength and capacity. And then I also need to give myself the time to be in that level and then expand again. So there's that part of it too. So just know, more than anything, it's all normal. And as much as you can, to observe your experience rather than evaluate. That's out of anything over the years. I've learned that now, that I observe where I'm at rather than evaluate, like I should be at a greater ability to receive more, or I should not have mind chatter, or any of those things. I've learned to just let me be where I am in the process of it.
Okay, awesome. So our next question is, let me pull it up here. 1 second. What are the best ways to set an interior space up for a Reiki session, whether it's distance Reiki or one where Reiki is given to oneself or given to another? Do you have clearing rituals for the room prior to a session? Are there intention Reiki symbols drawn on every directional surface? If so, which ones? Is there an order? Is there clearing ritual for the space after the session besides washing your hands? So essentially, it's just about what your preparations are, clearing after or before sessions. I do want to mention that we actually did a whole couple video or whole videos on this. They are on our YouTube channel and also probably on our podcast. There might be some that aren't on the podcast before we started uploading them to both. We have one that is 10 ways to space clear negative energy, and also space clearing ritual to remove negative energy, and Reiki ideals guided meditation for clearing. So I am on our YouTube channel, Reiki Lifestyle, and I think that you could probably search this on our podcast as well, which is the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. Most of you would know that because you're listening to it. And I just searched clearing. So you can do that, and you'll find a couple of different videos that might be able to go into it in a little bit greater depth. And then also I'm just looking to see if we've done anything with the word preparations. So I will search that too and let you know if I find anything around that. So it would be, just where you have a longer form rather than just answering it in a couple minutes. It's more going to be like a 10 to 20 minute video that gives you more answers around this too. So the short answer is there's a lot of different ways that you can do preparations. You might have learned preparations in Reiki 1 and 2. And that is, maybe drawing the symbols on each of the walls. So, the 4 walls, the ceiling, the floor, the center of the room, and then on each chakra. So that's a preparation that you can do, drawing the symbols, a gasho meditation. And then also any sort of smoke clearing is another way to prepare. Cass distracting me. No, smoke clearing is like sage or Palo Santo, or a local style of smoke clearing, such as using dried cedar, some of those kinds of things that might grow naturally in your area as well. So that is, those are different ways to do preparations. What it really comes down to with preparations is allowing what connects to you. So if you feel like what gets you in the prepared space is to just do a gasho meditation, which is putting your hands together. It's the first pillar of Reiki, putting hands together at your heart with Reiki activated in between. Then that is, a preparation that is valid. If you want to do Reiji Ho, which is the indication of the spirit, much of the time it's bringing your thumbs to your third eye, and then back down to your heart. That is a valid preparation. Drawing the symbols in your hands, speaking them 3 times, I like to put a symbol out in front of me and bring it into my body. All of those are great preparations. Smoke clearing is a great preparation. I like to use the power symbol to prepare a room. So placing the power symbol all over the space, all walls, ceiling, floor, center. Sometimes I'll even use the motion of kind of lifting any dense energy into the space, into the light of Reiki where it's cleared, and then filling the space with Reiki with the power symbol. If you're not attuned to the symbols, you can just, fill it with Reiki. And that is a valid way to do preparations. And then other times I do like to smoke clear. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we can use sage, we can use cedar. There's a lot of different ways that you can smoke clear as well. And that is a valid preparation. So for me, it's just what am I connected to, either in general or in that moment? What helps me to get there, because there's so many different options for clearing and preparing for a session, either for yourself or for having a client. Then afterwards, I like to do Kenyoku, which is dry bathing. It's a Japanese Reiki technique. That is where you're going to go from your left hip shoulder down to your right hip, right shoulder down to left hip. You do that 3 times, and then you do your arms. So you're going to sweep down your arms and kind of, I think of it as fleeing that energy into the light of Reiki, washing your hands, or just giving yourself some quick Reiki after a session to do any sort of clearing that you might want to do or disconnecting that you might want to do. Sometimes these are going to be in a longer format. Sometimes you have time for that. And then sometimes you might have to do it just on the fly. Don't have a lot of time, and you just need to do it quickly, and that's okay too. Reiki is an intelligent energy. It's enlightened. It knows where to go and what to do. And smoke clearing is a ritual that has been used for thousands of years across thousands of cultures in all different ways. And so that is another thing that kind of is intelligent and knows where to go and what to do. So again, it's just really what preparations are you connected to? As Colleen said in kind of the last question, it is about what, helps you to get there, bring in the energy, invoke the energy. Colleen, I'm sure you have some other thoughts and suggestions around that.
I think just adding Reiki on the fly with it is just do it however you have time for it, want to do it, like to do it. I think more than anything, what I've learned is I've gotten really good at recognizing when I need to do space clearing, which is regularly, but also there are times that those energetic trails, we call them thought forms, can kind of coalesce into a particular area. And so I'll notice that. And so I think the space clearing for me also has to do with my mind management and how I think about keeping the space clear, because one of the things I notice is that when I have like that coalescing energy of thought forms that builds in a space, my car is one of them, usually kind of in the shower area in our bathroom is another one, sometimes in the kitchen is another area. And I'll notice that I can walk into a lower vibration energy that's kind of gathered there. And so it connects to my mind management, because I can walk into the energy and suddenly my mind goes into maybe that negative space if it's negativity. You can also build them positively, but I'm just talking about clearing the energy in this moment. So then I move it, recognize the need for it. And sometimes I'll build those salt bowls that Robyn was talking about and just put them down in the area and go about doing what I'm doing. Other times I'll spend time with it and really clearing the energy. And then sometimes I need to do it on the fly. And that's where it just comes into like, okay, Reiki on, clear this energy now, fill it up with, good energy. And also then I will disconnect from it that has affected me with my mind management and feelings, etc.
All right. The next question, Colleen, I think is a good one for you is, can you use a combination of Reiki styles when doing Reiki? For instance, use Tibetan Reiki and Holy Fire Reiki together.
Absolutely. So with that question, again, so here's how this really works in my mind, is that there are different ways of thinking about this exact answer. And depending on the lineage that you are working with, the teachers that you are working with, some are going to give you a completely different answer than I'm giving you. And I want to say that all those answers are also correct. So this is the way I perceive it, that yes, we work with the different energies. For myself, I spent years in shamanic training before receiving Reiki. I have a very kind of shamanic influence with how I practice Reiki. I've learned a lot of different symbols throughout my career with it. I started with Usui Tibetan lineage. Actually, I started with more of the Reiki Alliance lineage, then Usui Tibetan, then Karuna Reiki, then Holy Fire Reiki, and all of the different changes that have occurred in that, including I was trained in Usui Tiete and Gendai Reiki Ho, and I'm also aware of other symbols from other traditions, and then adding my shamanic work. In some of the lineages in which people are trained, they're given very specific practices to use every time. And there is the value in that. They're given very specific ways to work with the symbols and very specific hand positions and, specific traditions in that lineage. And there can be some of those that are very strict about doing things exactly one way. And there are those that are a little bit less strict about doing things exactly that way. In this particular lineage, working with the ICRT lineage, so that includes, because William developed the Usui Tibetan, also the Karuna Reiki, and then the Holy Fire Reiki lineages, that in my work with this, learning that the tradition of this lineage is utilizing Reiki energy to take you to your inner truth. So we have very specific tools and techniques that we use because they work, and we have a commonality of understanding of those techniques and traditions to work with the energies. But we also have the openness and flexibility to be inclusive with our own inner truth about the energies we're working with, the techniques we use, the symbols we're working with. And so, both are available, like both ways. If you want a very definite structure, we provide that very definite structure. There's no strictness in it, though. If you are looking for more of a structure that takes you to your inner truth, then that's how we work with this energy. Now, at the same time, with some of the other traditions that you might be trained in, so for instance, in my shamanic training, and I trained with indigenous people from around the world, different shamanic practitioners and teachers around the world. Some of them were very clear about only work with this exact energy that they are teaching. And that's appropriate for that training, for that energy, for that tradition. And other traditions that I've learned, they, invite inclusiveness of other energies. So, for instance, I've been in shamanic ceremonies where they're definite, do not use Reiki in this. And that's not a criticism. It's because they are working with a specific energy, with specific traditions, and they're asking that to be in that container and how things are done. So it's not to reject the other energies. It's to say we're working this way. And so, for me, I have learned that when I'm in those traditions, I work in those traditions without any resistance to the idea that they've asked me to stay right within that tradition, within that container, working with those energies. It's one of the reasons I actually like Reiki, is because it is inclusive of and complementary to other traditions. So sometimes, and I know this is a little bit different than what you asked, but since it's the same subject, sometimes some of the practices that you use, that where you might use Reiki to complement that practice doesn't want you to do that. And so let's say some of your licensing in a professional arena, say as a licensed therapist, for instance, how you would use Reiki to complement that practice would also be determined by the practices and licensing and ethics of that practice. So the same thing is true in different lineages. When I'm in the different lineages of how to practice Reiki, and I am with a group practicing a specific way, then I am in that group and I honor that way and I practice that way. In my personal practice and what I teach is how to use these energies to go to your inner truth, to determine how you combine things, to let the energy teach you that. And that's what we have done over all of these years, is really letting the energies teach us how we practice. And that starts with the energy of curiosity and asking. And so a lot of it was just learning to ask the question, show me how you do this. Show me how this works now. Show me, and letting the energy teach me. And so Robyn and I, in our development of our next step classes, for instance, or our Explore the 12 Heavens of Consciousness classes, we use the energy and the development of our animal Reiki courses. We use the energy and ask the energy to show us how it works. And then that's the practice of learning how to get out of the way. And at the same time, we also like a lot of the standardized practices that make sense. So a lot of the common techniques that we've been taught, the symbols we work with, how it all works, there's a commonality of experience throughout Reiki communities that we can all work with. So a simple one for that might be the symbols that you decide to work with. There's a commonality of awareness of what some of these symbols do and how they work. There's also going to be your experience of them. So in the answer directly to this question, it would be for you to invite the symbols to show you how you work with it. If you're going to teach, it is easier for you to teach within the structure of the lineage that you're teaching within, just simply because then you don't have to recreate it all. And you can teach the same thing where, telling people they can develop their own way. And at the same time, when you're actually teaching, working within the structure of the materials that you are working with. So lots of right answers to that question. And depending on who you ask, you would get different answers. So really, to summarize it, ask Reiki. So let it show you and ask it to show you how that works for you.
Well, great. There is also kind of a related question to this that I'm going to go ahead and ask. Okay. Let me just make sure I get to it so I get the right question. Do I have to be a professional licensed Reiki teacher to teach Holy Fire Reiki and use the manual? I'm already a Yusui master teacher from another center, but I believe took a Karuna Reiki class from you relatively recently, which would have then been a Holy Fire Karuna Reiki class. So the short answer is you do not have to be a professional member or a licensed Reiki master teacher with the ICRT or even an affiliate member to teach Holy Fire Reiki. You just would have had to have been attuned to taken the Holy Fire Reiki master class in order to teach, or Karuna class in order to teach Holy Fire Reiki. So I want to make sure I say that a little more linear. In order to teach Holy Fire Reiki, you would have had to have taken either the Holy Fire Reiki master class or been qualified and taken the Holy Fire Karuna Reiki master class. You don't need to be licensed or a professional member or any of that to have to be able to teach it. Let's see. The next question is kind of related to the last one as well, because you talked about it a little bit. This one's from Min. What's the best way to learn about and how to journey with Reiki like Colleen and I do? It's so different than what I've learned in my 10 years of Reiki. So Colleen, why don't you go ahead and start with this? And then I think there's a few perspectives that I would like to also include.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, is that how we are teaching and practicing Reiki may be different than the way she learned Reiki. And
it's a little bit like that, but I think the question is how to learn how to journey with Reiki.
Okay, can you read the question again?
Uh-huh.
Just to make sure I'm clear about it.
Yeah. What's the best way to learn how to journey with Reiki and about it? Like we do. It's so different from what I've learned in my 10 years of Reiki.
Okay, I think I understand now. And then we can revisit it if I'm not answering it. So one of the main reasons that Robyn and I started the Next Step training classes was the awareness kind of exactly around your question, because what I see as a teacher of Reiki is that people are receiving intuitive or psychic impressions with Reiki energy even on day one. Now, that's not true for everybody. So I'll answer that a little bit differently too, because everybody receives the way Reiki works for them differently. But in my years of shamanic training and teaching shamanism, really understanding that part of what has happened to many of us culturally is really generations and centuries of suppressing our ability to our psychic and intuitive abilities. And there are those of us that are naturally born with them. We might be those who are considered too sensitive in life, or perhaps we've had kind of this expanded vision of the world around us differently than others. So Reiki energy naturally enhances your inner truth, your inner guidance, inner awareness, and your telepathy abilities, psychic abilities, intuition, imagination. It naturally enhances all these areas of your consciousness and your mind, and your thoughts. So how do you gain skill with it? Which is what we decided to teach was Reiki journey techniques to gain those skills, to retrain your mind, retrain your brain, connect you to your gut brain, your heart brain, your whole body listening, observation, to be able to go deeper within with the Reiki energy, the questions that you have, the spiritual inquiry you might have, the what we call wondering and wandering on a daily basis. So Reiki journey techniques, you know, we are mostly working with the distance symbol, and we also work with the Holy Fire symbol, which is also a distance symbol. To be able to use a bridge of light, so thinking of the distance symbol, the Usui distance symbol, that it creates a bridge of light to journey to the same realms you might journey to in shamanic work with drums or rattles. All of it is designed to access another level of consciousness. The drums and rattles get you there through that sound. The distance Reiki symbol gets you there through consciousness. Its intention or its meaning is the origin of all is pure consciousness. So it actually, when you invoke it, when you access it and activate it, it entrains your consciousness to those higher levels. And I use the technique of physically walking over a bridge of light the distance symbol creates. And in our case, we are often going to the spiritual realm we call the third heaven to explore questions, ideas, and receive answers, do our healing work, our empowerment work, because the third heaven is an enlightened realm, and there is only love and only enlightened energies and beings there. In this particular training, we work with what we call the 12 heavens of consciousness. So we might use that bridge of light to access all those levels where we may perceive them as outside of us, or also inside. It's what you are made of. You have all these enlightened life force energies within you, and you can use Reiki to access them. So Reiki energy and when we call it Reiki journey techniques, it's just another technique working with Reiki energy that takes you to those levels of consciousness to perceive, to heal, to access your own higher consciousness. And then we are also aware that the earth has these levels of consciousness, and also in the infinite or spiritual realms, there are these levels of consciousness and even higher. We know there's higher, but the energy in our journey said just start with these 12. That's plenty to work with for now. Some of you may already be going higher with it. So how do you actually learn them? so we wrote articles about that, and we've done quite a bit of work, even in our YouTube and podcast channels, where we've done a lot of how to learn to use Reiki Journey techniques. So the articles are on our website. Specifically, one is has the title has more to do with spiritual guidance, and the other is specifically how to journey with Reiki. And then we've done podcasts about it. We've done the distance Reiki shares, where we've done a whole month of practices for Reiki journey techniques. So really accessing the energies of Reiki that you work with and inviting that journey. In shamanic work, you might use, we work with the upper world, middle world, and lower world. So you could still be working with those realms, those spiritual realms that you already work with, and get there through drums and rattles. And you might go to the lower world, which, by the way, is an enlightened realm of the earth. And so you may go down a tree route to get there. You may use the drum to shift your energy into access of that inner awareness, inner truth. You might go into the middle world, which is the same as this earth plane that we call the first heaven, where we have a duality of consciousness. And then you may use like a stairway to go into the upper worlds and the drums and rattles, and that's your imagery of it. So there are many different spiritual locations. There are many levels of consciousness that you can access within you, around you, out in the infinite realms. The how-to of that is the technique that you're going to use. And like I say, the technique we use is the Reiki energy, and we access it through that bridge of light using the distance symbol, the other symbols as well, but the distance symbol is the travel method. The mental emotional symbol for me is the translator, the communicator, the question asker, the answer receiver. And the power symbol, that CKR, is that power of love that is at the foundation of everything. And then all the other symbols have different accesses. That Holy Fire symbol, really taking you into those levels of your higher consciousness, the levels of higher consciousness around you, the spiritual levels of consciousness. So the different energies that you're working with are also part of your Reiki journey. So that's why we developed the Next Step Reiki classes. And those are extensive training in it. And, really for kind of, to be honest with you, starting with unlearning some of those blocks and resistances that we have to access that ability to journey, to gain levels of consciousness and awareness, both in the journey, but also after the journey, so that it's present at any time through insight, through activating, like I say, connecting your brain, your divine mind, your heart brain, your gut brain, all of those working together. And the Reiki energy does that. So you can do that on your own through your own practices. We have very specific training for it in the Next Step classes. Those are a year long, and they start from January to December. They're coming up in 2024 again for the next level. And we have 3 one-year level classes for that. We also have the Reiki journey techniques that we work with and practice in the Explore the 12 Heavens of Consciousness, also a year-long class that we meet monthly. And you can meet live like this online, or you can also do the recordings. But I also want you to know that if you are already working with journey techniques, just think about read those articles, listen to some of the YouTubes that you may want to, if you want to do it on your own. Even if you're already working with your own existing experiences and you're, let's say, a very experienced shamanic practitioner and journeyer, you're going to receive new information in these classes. At the same time, I don't want anyone to feel like you have to take the classes in order to gain these skills. They are ones that you can practice on your own. So, that's why we've tried to provide the resources for you if that is, your circumstance and your choice that you want to, practice on your own. So, again, another long answer. Go ahead, Robyn.
Well, it is a long answer, honestly, because it is nuanced. And there's so many different styles and ways to learn, and from different modalities, and then just in Reiki in general, there's, lots of information around it. I think we did a whole month, as you were saying, Colleen, last year on our YouTube and podcast, a whole month about Reiki journey techniques. So you can go and find videos on that or if you search our YouTube channel, Journey. And then also, I think it was the last November or October that we did a whole month on it. So not only did we do Reiki journeys where you can participate in guided ones, but we also talked about what they are, what they are, kind of how to learn. So more experience or more in-depth things. But as Colleen said, and several people who are in our Next Step Reiki classes mentioned in the chat, that it is a year-long training course. Next Step Reiki is a year-long training course on how to learn Reiki journey techniques. But it's also 3 years. So it's broken up into 1 year curriculum, but it's a 3-year program, and you learn how to do this all very in depth. That was kind of one of the unlearning things that I had to do when learning how to journey with Reiki. I learned how to shamanic journey a long time ago, but with journeying with Reiki, one of the things that I really had to unlearn is that all of this is a skill. So journeying is a skill. Channeling it out loud is a skill that Colleen and I and Danny do. Channeling out loud is a skill. And then also using these skills in sessions or for ourselves, and how to observe what the Reiki energy is doing and being able to channel that and channel out loud and journeying for people and for myself. All of that is a skill that you can learn. There are some of us that are naturally have these natural gifts, as a couple people put in the chat, that that they were born with these gifts and either needed to know what to do with them, or at some point in their life, maybe shut them off for any sort of reason, and that these things can help and how to manage them and what to do with them. But like for me, that wasn't my journey, no pun intended, with it. I always thought that I wasn't intuitive, that I couldn't do that kind of work, because I was a bit more linear, a bit more left brained. And so that it wasn't for me. So when I kind of unlearned the fact that it's just an innate gift that you're born with, it's either that or nothing, it really changed my perspective of it, and was so relieved and glad to hear that it's something that you can learn how to do. And that is what we teach. And like Colleen said, there's a lot of different ways to do it, a lot of different things that, a lot of different teachers that teach it, but we do teach it really in depth and a lot of different perspectives on how to do it for yourself. And then if you're interested, how to do it for others. However, doing it for others is really, really fascinating, and fun and healing work as well. So that would just be what I would add to it, is that if you're like, well, I'm not like that, or I don't have those gifts, and I don't have the gift of channeling out loud. It's like, neither did I. I learned how to do it. And
Me either. I was
yeah, well,
terrified
that's
of it.
true.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Ah."
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that I didn't know. It's like, and being, I have an accounting business degree. So being that kind of person naturally, I was like, well, I'm not right brained. I'm not, it turns out I have some of those skills now that I've kind of unlocked that piece of it through my own healing and Reiki journey. But naturally, I'm pretty linear and pretty left brained. And so, I was like, well, I'm just never going to be able to do that. And my practice is going to have to be a certain way. And that's great too. And some people don't have an interest in it, and that's okay. But I have really learned and loved learning how to journey with Reiki, how to channel out loud. It's really taken my practice, not only for myself, but as a practitioner and teacher, to an entirely different level. Go ahead, Danny.
I just wanted to add that I've been a student of Colleen's for many, many years now. And when I first started, I thought there is no way that I can do sessions how Colleen does them, because she's just very intuitive. She knows what to say, exactly what to, how to make me feel comfortable and to get solutions and revelations. And I just thought, like Robyn, I worked for a construction management firm for 16 years. So it was black and white. It's either right or wrong. And so I'm like, I can do Reiki, but I'm definitely not going to be able to do Reiki sessions like Colleen or Robyn. And after taking those classes and reading the articles and re-listening to the podcasts, I mean, that's how I do all my sessions now. So I can't not do them that way now. So it's amazing. So if you think there's no way, there is a way. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. Yeah. So agreed. Go ahead, Margaret, Reiki Central.
Hi, I just want to second what Danny said. Can you hear me okay with the mask?
Yep.
All right. So I became attuned in October 2020 and joined the Next Step in January, and I'm in my third year. And I'm very humbled and very grateful because of the awakening which occurred as a result of Next Step. I mean, I was newly attuned, didn't know what I didn't know, and was able through these courses to reconnect with my authentic self. And while they have a really great program, the one thing that they always say is Reiki your way. And that's really important. You're going to listen to yourself, know yourself, trust yourself. And while you have systems and structures, you can actually do it the way Colleen and Robyn do it, but you can also develop your own way as well. And it's really a lot of fun, and it's very supportive, and it's very affirming to be in these rooms with people who, as Colleen says, so what did the tree say? That you're having these conversations, and it creates a lot of workability. And, this October is my third full year of being attuned, and that everything just divinely aligned and was organized was powerful. So if you have an opportunity, this is the time. Step into it, register, and discover for yourself in your life how you do Reiki your way. They're very accessible, very affordable, and they'll work with you. And again, very, very grateful.
Oh, thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Well, I also want to add, just for clarification, for those of you that, you just want to do Reiki and not really interested in Reiki journeys and things like that, that the journey techniques that we do teach us how to observe what Reiki does. And so for me, it's fascinating and a high level of interest and curiosity. We also want to be sure that everyone is clear that the way you do Reiki without journeying is as powerful for you and for your clients as if you are journeying. So, there's lots of right ways to do it all. And so we want to make sure that, even as we love the Reiki journey techniques, and whether it's for others or only for ourselves, the technique takes us into a fascinating level of understanding and interest. The Reiki energy is still doing the work, whether we journey with it or we don't journey with it. So always know that, working with Reiki, the way you are interested in it, the way it works for you, and how your practice is developed is just right for you, as Margaret was saying, to really just, take it to your way. So, but just as we're all saying, we really love the practice of the Reiki journey techniques. They do take it to the next level of fascination. And the reason that it's 3 one-year classes is that it takes a long time to really build those foundations so that you are clear about how all of this works for you, how the energy is working for you, what the techniques are, and most of all, really understanding your own intuition, because your intuition styles can be very different than, say, a clairvoyant. As Robyn was saying, her, thinking about the skill level that comes from it is that, one of the big misunderstandings people have is that people with a very analytical, left brain, logical mind are not intuitive. They are absolutely as intuitive as the person that is artistic, musical, has that, what we think of as those, natural born gifts. I would say for myself, I was born with those gifts, always had them, but then over time learned to suppress them and lost a lot of those abilities that I wanted to regain, but I didn't know that's what I was looking for. And what I didn't know I was looking for most of all, that the journeys really did for me was gave me access to myself, to be able to hear myself, to go deeper, to access my higher consciousness, but also bring it into my daily life and my human consciousness, my daily brain that I need to function with. And, how does this all help me in managing and living my daily life and creating in my daily life? And so I happen to like this way of doing things, but it also works a lot of different ways too.
Yeah. I think that point of Reiki your way is so important. And that is why we say it a lot, because there's many right ways.
Yeah.
So, and then Danny put in the chat, I recently had an in-person kind of straight Reiki session with no journeying, and it was amazing and just right for the client. It's nice to have options. Agreed. I have one client who always wants straight Reiki sessions, even though she knows my skills. It's just what she prefers. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and there's lots of times where you're really looking at Reiki journeys where it's really not appropriate to journey for a client. So it's having the skill and discernment. So for instance, if I'm working on a person that is not there for that, I don't activate those skills. Or if I'm in a medical setting where it's not somebody I directly know, I definitely do not access journey skills. And speaking of that, it's the way that it works, you're still staying within the scope of your practice. So when I just mentioned medical, I wanted to say, I'm not a medical intuitive, and I don't use my Reiki journey skills to be a medical intuitive. If I wanted to learn those skills, that for me personally would be another level of training. I would find a teacher who knows how to do that. Many of you may already be doing that your way. And so I'm just talking about me. Also, I'm aware that with my journey skills, I'm not a predictive psychic. For instance, I'm not looking out into the future. And I'm also stay within the scope of my practice. For instance, I'm very aware that I'm not a counselor with my journey skills. But it's interesting how Reiki works in the way the journey, what the information is that it does bring in. And again, that's going to be unique for you, and that's going to be unique for your clients and individuals. But there's also that level of discernment on how you share, when you share, what you share. First step, you are never responsible to share what comes through in a Reiki journey if you know you are not comfortable sharing it, or it would not be appropriate for that client. Often, if I'm in a situation where it's not even appropriate for me to journey, I just don't journey. So I'm not looking. I'm just giving a Reiki session, and I'm not going into that next depth. But always know you are never required to journey for people and provide information. And particularly if you receive information, you're like, I don't want to share this, and I don't know my accuracy. I'm having a discerning moment right now. Follow your discernment. Follow that first. Err on the side of caution. And, you'll know. And then I use Reiki energy for those times to really go into what's appropriate here. What is the right level of sharing here, and give me the words that are useful, that make a difference.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have 2 more questions. So
Okay.
I want to get to both of them. Andre is here as well. So I'm going to read, and then Andre, you're after this question. So I want to make sure that we get to both of them. So I'm pregnant, and especially in the first few months, I would get very nauseous during Reiki sessions for clients, to the point where I was facilitating a distance session via phone call and actually had to step away a couple of times during the sessions to throw up. This experience drove me to take a break from working with clients for a while. Not sure if this was Reiki guiding me to go within and focus on myself and my baby for a while, or if it was just necessary purging. My question is twofold. I'm seeking any insights or advice about this experience, and I'm wondering how to get back into it, as I somehow feel rusty, like I don't remember how to facilitate a session, or I've lost my momentum. I'd like to build a Reiki business, but at this point, it feels like I don't know how to make this happen for me. So, first of all, just being in the first trimester is, you never know what is going to cause that reaction. I know sometimes with Reiki, we think that everything is going to feel good 100% of the time. And not only in my own personal experience, but also in my professional experience with clients, with students, that it is not uncommon for you to have these types of reactions that happen. People have what's called healing crisis all the time. And that means it can just simply even be a headache. It doesn't have to be like a crisis in the way that we think of it, but they can have an uncomfortable reaction to Reiki. Usually what that is doing is clearing out what needs to be cleared out to make space for more with Reiki, with healing, with revealing, all of these things. When it comes to the first trimester of pregnancy, you can catch a smell, and it's going to make you feel like you want to throw up. So to me, it feels like it's almost just a little normal that could happen. What I'm also kind of sensing or been kind of hearing around it is, I also wonder with children, with babies, with you being pregnant, you are more sensitive, your senses are heightened. And so it might just be that one of the things that we've learned with like animal Reiki is that you can be just more sensitive to Reiki energy. So animals in general many times prefer not to have hands-on Reiki. They just kind of want a Reiki zone in order to be able to just receive the Reiki, but at a bit of a gentler, it's a bit of a gentler idea to just be in this kind of nebulous Reiki as opposed to direct Reiki or hands-on Reiki, because they're too sensitive. I know after one of my seizures last summer, I was so electric that I could not have Colleen put her hands on me. It hurt. Like I was just super uncomfortable. So what she did instead was just sat near me and just did Reiki, and what was Reiki, and had this Reiki zone around herself, and that I was able to receive. So there are times that you can be a lot more sensitive to Reiki. And I could see how, being, especially in the first trimester of pregnancy, that this could be the case, because we are more sensitive to everything. Where our emotions are more sensitive, our senses are more sensitive, our bodies are more sensitive. And so to me, it would actually kind of tracks that it is a possibility that you're just more sensitive to Reiki. And also that you are following your guidance around, that you just kind of needed to shift in this moment of your Reiki practice to go within for you and your baby. That is another thing that it might be teaching you. But I will say that with your Reiki practice, I know that it can be challenging to lose momentum. But one thing to know is that your Reiki practice is like riding a bike, is that once you just start again, that it all just comes flooding back. And it's not to say that it can't shift what it looks like and what it feels like, because that happens in your Reiki practice all the time, because we change as people, right? And it's okay to change, and it's okay to change as a Reiki practitioner and a Reiki business, and as a person. But that just know, once you just start and just start again, as Danny says a lot, just start, that it is really like riding a bike, that it will all come back to you. So you might feel a little rusty. And that happens for experienced Reiki teachers, Reiki practitioners. If you haven't taught a certain class for a long time, or let's say you haven't been a practitioner, maybe you even took some time off, the first one back, you can still feel like, okay, wait, do I have this? Oh, it's been a while. And as soon as you start to get back into it, it just comes right back to you. But it's not abnormal, even for a seasoned Reiki teacher and practitioner, to kind of feel that way. And to even have like a little bit of those first session jitters. That's also very, very normal as well. So know that too. As you know, we move into parenthood, I will say that our lives change dramatically. I have a 6.5-year-old and was starting my Reiki business when I was pregnant. In fact, I took my Karuna class. I don't know if it was review or if it was my first Holy Fire one. That's what it was. When I was 2 weeks pregnant with my daughter. She was attuned in the womb. And that was part of when I said yes to coming and working with Colleen. It was just before that. But then anyways, going through that process in pregnancy, and then going through that process in early motherhood, there is a really big shift in your life, and there's a big shift in all of these things. And I know, as a person that has always, I was very called to be an entrepreneur, called to have a business, ambitious, driven. I like to work. I love this work. I'm passionate about it. All of those things. And that shifts a little bit in the first year of parenthood, for sure. And I know for that, it was a little frustrating to be like, I'm sick, I can't do it. Or when you have a newborn, I've I haven't slept in days, or I have childcare that I have to do, and so that has to come first before working. And so there are those adjustments and those shifts that will happen. And when you are, like you said, in this momentum that you feel very driven and passionate about and wanting to do, that can feel a little frustrating. And I just wanted to say that because I wanted to kind of let you know that it's very normal and that it's okay if that's how you are feeling, that it is, it's not always going to be this blissful motherhood, this working out of this, parenthood, working, being a working parent, all of those things that comes with it. With my daughter being in school and 6.5, I still have those struggles. I still have guilt. I am very passionate about having a work-life balance, especially with my child. And I still have that guilt, or those shoulds, or those things. Am I working too much? Am I not working enough? I want to make sure that I'm getting to her games and her school functions. And when I have to miss those, it's like, all of those things that come with it. And I think that, sometimes we have this perception that if we are spiritual, and that if we are a Reiki business owner, Reiki practitioner, teacher, all of these things, that we will be Zen about all of it. And that's not the case for me. There's still the normal things that go on as a part of parenthood in the 21st century. And even people that, even if you have a job, there's still all of these things like that are very normal. And it's true in a Reiki business as well. And it's true as a Reiki practitioner. And there's things that I'm like, I can't work all the time because I have to have that work-life balance that I also deeply care about. There's sometimes you'll see colleagues that are able to accomplish things that you're not able to accomplish because you have a small child. And so there's those kinds of things that happen as well, that with work, like you said, you maybe feel like sometimes you lose that momentum, and you might see somebody else that's able to accomplish the things that you aren't able to accomplish, because you do have to have that work-life balance. And especially in those first months and year, it's like there's not even a choice, because you have an infant that relies on you. And so there's all of those things that do really come into all of this as well. And just because it's a Reiki business does not change that fact. And so what Reiki can do is help you. What I found with it is, I thought I would be a completely Zen mother because I have Reiki, right? That it was just going to fix all of that, make me that. And it wasn't. I wasn't that way. And a lot of people are. So I'm not saying that doesn't also create that, but Reiki really helped support me through those emotions, through those wants and needs on both sides, whether it's the side of parenthood or whether it's the side of wanting to be a business owner. So it supported me on both sides of it. And it supported me in those times where I maybe got frustrated, or I got down, or all of those things that are true with new parenthood. It helped support me with that. And it helped support me navigate my new life with this. But it didn't necessarily change any of that. It didn't necessarily fix any of that, because it's just a reality of where you're at. And so I just want to share that I also, it was helpful to hear sometimes that is also normal, and that just because it's Reiki doesn't always change that. But once you get back into it, know that it will come all back. It will all come back, and you might be a different person, and that's okay too. And your practice might change a bit, and that's okay too. I think that's very natural with any big changes in our life, whether it's birth or loss or new beginnings or moving, all of these new things that can happen in our life. It changes who we are as a person, and Reiki supports that, and parenthood is no different. So just know that you're doing a great job. You are listening to your guidance about that and why maybe this happened for you. and know that as soon as you are ready, and just start, and it will come back to you and for you.
And I would just add that Reiki teaches us through all the different cycles in our life. And it teaches us, we always call it like real life Reiki, because it teaches us through our daily life. And asking Reiki what, like the energy itself, what can I do differently, or how is this working now, can also be helpful. But having been, I've now over 20 years of working with it, and through all my life cycles from my 40s, and my children were teenagers at the time I started with it all, and then going through the transition of my children becoming adults and now parenting adult children, then grandchildren, and all of those, that all of those things have been true. And then caregiving my mother, now caregiving my in-laws, really finding out that Reiki teaches us through our real life experiences, and there's a reason for it. And that as you are able to look back at it in retrospect, so as an example, I really learned about Reiki on the fly because of caregiving my mom. And those same frustrations, I didn't always feel blissful, although I was the person I hoped I would be in it. I can still look back and remember, the emotions that would go through the frustrations of, her circumstances, her way of managing her circumstances, and how I had to fit into those, and using Reiki to help me do that. And so I learned so much from the Reiki energy. So I really invite you to let it come in at whatever pace is appropriate for you. Sometimes I could just think the name of one symbol for the day. That was it. And not making the requirements of myself that I do all the practices I was able to do prior to that time and that life cycle. So asking Reiki how it worked for you today and the best way for you to work with it, and let that be okay, that it is occurring for you this way, that you are learning about it this way. What's it like if I need to take a step back? What's it like? How do I work with Reiki in this circumstance? Because we run through life cycles every day, and it's real life Reiki. That needs to be a title.
Awesome. All right, Andre, thank you so much for your patience. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much for being
Hi, Andre.
Hi. So I'll try to make my question compact, but it might be a little bit winded. I'm sorry about that. How it came to be, I was listening to autobiography of a yogi yesterday, and Yogananda shares experiences exactly the same that I had, like, I don't know, many years ago. But he actually went through them. It got like liberated from the inside, kind of. And I freaked out. I stopped it. And I guess that I closed my perception of, like, yeah, I guess I just closed all my channels, I guess, of like understanding and seeing and like letting the energy change me, I guess, somehow. And like, I learned how not to use my mind during the meditations, during the Reiki, during whatever. I'm just basically like accepting the energy in, but I don't like, it's really hard to explain what I'm doing, but I think that I'm stifling the energy, and I just realized it just like yesterday. And I'm just, yeah, I was so afraid of those experiences. Like, they were really terrifying experiences, like to me at that time, at least. And I'm just like wondering how to let myself, I don't know, I guess like start trusting myself again, and like letting the information come.
I think doing exactly what you just did. And again, recognizing that sometimes you're learning through your process and Reiki is teaching you through your process. So what is the experience that led you to the revelation yesterday, and how Reiki has been working with you? I've known you a long time, and you've been working with Reiki a long time your way. And then yesterday, I think of it as a spiral, like we come around to the spiral and we look again, like, how much further do I want to go? And so now you hit that revelation of, oh, I'm ready to go further with it. So it's really the same answer of, just allowing yourself to open to the possibilities and communicating with Reiki that yes answer. So you can specifically, do more training that is going to develop more skills. You can also, work with the Reiki energy individually and on your own to just continue to allow that. I think that, again, a lot of us grew up with scary ideas about what those abilities are. And so many of us did shut them off, which is what we were talking about earlier. And you think of Yogananda in his time in history, he would have been invited by his spiritual guides and teachers to go deeper and not be afraid of them. So I think there's the culturally created self that Reiki helps us heal, because we have those lineage teachings of better shut those gifts off because you don't know what they are, you don't know where they're going, and if you share them, you might be ridiculed, persecuted, criticized, and in many cases, for many families, there's even estrangement that can go with it. So even if that's not your circumstance, those energies are there that can create fear with the ability. And so to me, that's one of the most common parts of it all, is that so many of us not only naturally shut off our abilities, but we were also taught to shut off those abilities by the culture we were raised in, maybe the family we were raised in, or maybe even, I think, past life histories that, are like, I know what happens to people who do those kinds of things, and I'm not going there this lifetime. And so some of it's healing, and most of all, what happens, it sounds like in your case, you are now in the revealing part of it, revealing those abilities, letting Reiki come in. And if you think of, you have past life memories where there's fear involved, you also have past life memories of gifts involved that you can activate. You have ancestral histories of gifts that can be activated. And that's one of Reiki's primary functions, is it activates your gifts and brings them forward. And sometimes you have to go, whoa, I don't know what that is. I have to learn more about it. So letting Reiki help you understand it and also take your time with it. There's, first of all, no requirements and no shoulds around any of it, that you get to take as much time with it as is comfortable, reasonable, practical. And then also sometimes it comes in because you have already said yes to it. So once you say yes, the energy will also work with you for that timing that is appropriate for you. And sometimes it really does have to do with timing. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm not in the cycle of my life where this is going to be a good thing for me to navigate through process, focus on. And then other times you move into a cycle of your life when, oh, now the timing is right and I get to open and I get to expand with this. And so Reiki will help regulate that with you. And so sometimes it really is just the practicalities of the timing. So allowing yourself to be, be right where you are supposed to be today, and what you've learned from the previous experiences will be, upon reflection, it's part of your path and part of your journey that you've learned from and develop from here. And not everybody wants to go further, and that's okay too. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's because of a fear. It can also just plain be, like I have one of my family members, for instance, he's like, well, I get that you're very spiritual. He said, I just am not that interested in it. And when I've done work with him, it's like he's been a spiritual master in other lifetimes. And this lifetime, he's just like, I'm just doing me and my intellectual mind. And he's, a super intellect. And so, we get to have fun discussions around it all. But like for himself, he's never had seeking or looking for spirituality or any of those things. And it's not what he's here to do this life. So it can be any of the above too.
I'll just quickly say one of the things that Colleen taught me early is when that kind of thing happened, our reaction is to kind of react and close our crown chakra, and actually said the answer is to open the crown chakra even further. And I know that was really helpful to go into that, because I did the same thing where I just kind of reacted like, ooh, and it's actually the answer to it is opening further. And sometimes we can do that on our own, and other times we might need help from outside. And so a Reiki session from somebody else can be helpful in some of these situations too, where we just can't quite get maybe past that block, or, need just this outside perspective, that can also be helpful. So.
Yeah, thank you. It's like, I feel like the energy flowing freely, like I pumped with energy, but I'm not like opening the right doors or something. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's abundance of energy. Like wherever you look, there's lots of energy. Like the chakras are open. I mean, sometimes they open, sometimes they close, but there's no like issues with that. It just, I don't get the like a subtle perception, I guess, like subtle experiences anymore. I don't know. It just, I'm just filtering this part out, I guess.
Well, either that or it's how is this working without all of that? Because it's still working.
It still works. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like everything is working as I'm guessing it's supposed to be. It just, there's no like those type of experience at least anymore, I guess.
Yeah. I've also been through those phases, and they're typically cycles. Good. So it's a cycle. So listen into the cycle rather than feeling like you're out of cycle, like you're not getting it, or maybe that it's not due to a fear. Maybe it's this cycle. So listen into it and how it's showing you now. And, that's really, I'm sincerely saying that's why we go through the cycles, and it teaches us through our real life. And so I had to learn how to go into the cycle rather than wanting it to be, how I always worked with it or what I always did. Like learning Reiki on the fly, for instance, I had to really learn how to work with Reiki without that in-depth Reiki experience where, it was showing up in different ways that took me a while to recognize that those ways were coming in through those sudden insights, sudden solutions, sometimes the organization of my priorities or what we're speaking of, because like I say, so much of that I learned through caregiving my mother. And that was 7 years of a cycle. And in that cycle, I also had others I was caregiving with and a lot of different things going on in my life. and I didn't have the same experiences of those in-depth Reiki experiences. And so eventually I started to see that, oh, it's showing up in today. It's very practical. Like it's showing me my to-do list. And I have clarity within myself of my to-do list. Sometimes it was the, walking into, like, I don't know why I'm picturing Costco, but Costco is a big store here. So I'm going into Costco and I'm having this sudden insight of, oh, that's what it is. One time it was going into Costco. I didn't know I was having all these Costco spiritual experiences, but now I'm thinking about it. Like driving to Costco on the fly and super busy, and 25 people coming to my house for Christmas. And it's like the day before, and I'm thinking it's going to be packed. And I was like, okay, Reiki, parking spot, make this easy. I'm not kidding you. I got the very first parking spot next to the handicap places. I got into it and out of it, and the checkers were actually talking to each other because there was nobody in line. I was like, whoa, how did that happen? So I started to learn that it worked differently than that Reiki sensation of experience. It was coming through in ways that I needed it for my real life, and that I could rely on it that way, and that I needed to be able to just go, like in that example, I was almost to Costco when I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to invite Reiki to come in and do this. I'm driving, which be careful when you're driving, but driving, letting the angel, and I felt that energy come through, but for a second, boom, walked in, it all worked out in an amazing way. So a weird example, but it's
not weird, real life.
It's real life. Yeah. And so ask it how it's showing you this way. And so rather than, wanting it to be different, ask how it's showing you today and this way and what's going on in your real life. Because now that I'm out of that cycle, I'm back in the cycles where I'm having really both experiences. Like I am just amazed at how incredibly intuitive and psychic and telepathic I am now, on the fly, and then in the in-depth moments of that in-depth Reiki experience, because I'm in a cycle right now that I can do that. I have the time to take the time to be in the practices of meditation and feeling and experiencing it. And so I'm in that cycle, but I also have that on the fly and love how that works. Okay. Yeah, Yogananda, Taylor just wrote she loves Yogananda. I was really blessed to be raised in Encinitas, California, and one of the significant Yogananda centers was just down the street from me. And the energy of that Swami's Beach is what we called it. And it was one of our places to go. And my niece-in-law, Sarah, that many of you meet here, was raised in the Self-Realization Fellowship there, and always the gardens there and the beauty of the energy there. So there's always been a connection with him. In fact, just quickly, and I know we have to finish up, but one of my dearest friends in the world, I grew up with her from middle school on, her grandfather is the one, it used to be called Noonan Point, and her grandfather is the one that actually sold that land to Yogananda, and in that center. So anyway, Robyn will.
Yeah, and Andre, you're back. We saw that you froze. There wasn't really too much more, I think, after you froze. But I think that hopefully answered your question.
No, it does. Thank you very much. It really helps. So, well, yeah.
And
really
as you're you're in this journey and cycle with it and learning from it and learning with it, you can definitely feel free to continue, asking and sharing the experience that's happening for you, because I do think it's relatively common that people kind of go through these shifts and changes and cycles, and how everything through Reiki is kind of manifesting for them. So, yeah.
And I will tell you, it's still happening after this many years.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of, again, we call it real life Reiki. It's just real life. The difference is I'm not anxious about it anymore. Now I've had the opportunity to know that it works the way we need it, how we need it, and it's trying to teach us that
it happens enough that you've eventually learned to not have the kind of attachment to what it's teaching you. You just know that there's, something's coming from this.
Yeah.
It
doesn't mean I don't have
trusting. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean I don't have the feelings in the mix of that.
Yeah, of course.
So it doesn't mean I'm like, oh, no worries. There are still the days I'm like, what? Come on.
I love this. I love this. Everything is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Come on, Reiki. So yeah, I can still have the feelings. But I've learned, like you say, I've learned to trust.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Okay. You. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Many blessings to you all. We're going to go ahead and wrap up with this Q&A podcast. Thank you so much for being here, for your amazing questions and insights and all of that, as usual. Again, we have some classes coming up. Go to Reiki Lifestyle to check all of that out. As we talked about a little bit, Next Step Reiki starts in January, and it's a year-long course. We will be starting to talk about that more as we get things for registration up and all of that. But if you're interested, you can keep an eye out for that. So many blessings, much love. Thank you, Danny and Colleen. And we open the circle, and thank you again. Bye now.
Thank you so much, everyone.